When we gaze upon the story of the atomic bomb, it's easy to picture just one person building it. We might imagine a lone genius, tinkering away with wires and strange materials, but honestly, that's not how this story goes. The atomic bomb was never the work of just one person's hands. It was actually the product of many minds. J. Robert Oppenheimer was the man who brought all those minds together. He wasn't a mechanic or an engineer in the traditional sense. He didn't build the bomb with his own hands. Instead, he served as the scientific director of the Los Alamos laboratory. You could say he was the conductor of a vast and complex scientific orchestra. His job was to guide the most brilliant physicists of his time toward a single, terrifying goal. Oppenheimer's role was one of immense intellectual leadership. If you think of him as the chief architect of a grand, unprecedented project, you get the idea. An architect doesn't lay every brick or hammer every nail. The architect holds the complete vision and understands how every small part fits into the larger structure. This was Oppenheimer. He understood the theoretical physics, the chemistry, the engineering, and the metallurgy. But even more importantly, he understood people. He knew how to motivate them, how to challenge them, and how to make them work together. He was the central point, the hub through which all ideas flowed and were organized into a coherent plan of action. Before the war, Oppenheimer was a celebrated theoretical physicist. He was a professor at the University of California, Berkeley. His work explored the new and strange world of quantum mechanics. He made important contributions to our understanding of subatomic particles and the stars. This deep knowledge of theoretical physics made him the perfect person to lead the project. He could speak the language of all the different scientific specialists. He could grasp the complex mathematical theories that were the foundation of the bomb. His early research gave him the credibility and the intellectual authority to lead such a group of brilliant and often eccentric scientists. So, when we talk about Oppenheimer, we have to be clear. He was not the sole creator of the atomic bomb. The project known as the Manhattan Project was enormous. It involved hundreds of thousands of people across the United States. There were workers in factories in Tennessee and scientists in laboratories in Chicago. But at the heart of the weapons design was the secret city of Los Alamos in New Mexico. And at the heart of Los Alamos was Oppenheimer. He was the intellectual force that harnessed a universe of scientific knowledge and focused it into a single, world-changing device. He was the mind behind the bomb. The journey to the atomic bomb began not in a laboratory but in the minds of scientists. Oppenheimer was involved early on. In 1941, even before the United States entered World War II, he was invited to work on the physics of fast neutrons. These are the tiny particles that could start a nuclear chain reaction. He began calculating what it would take to create a self-sustaining reaction. He explored the critical mass of uranium-235 needed to make an explosion happen. His early work confirmed that a bomb was, in fact, theoretically possible. This research was crucial. It provided the scientific foundation that convinced the US government to launch the massive undertaking that would become the Manhattan Project. One of Oppenheimer's greatest skills was his ability to recognize and attract talent. When he was appointed to lead the bomb design laboratory, he knew he couldn't do it alone. He needed the best scientific minds in the world, so he traveled the country recruiting them one by one. He approached Nobel laureates like Enrico Fermi and brilliant theorists like Hans Bethe. He convinced them to leave their prestigious university posts. He asked them to move to a secret, isolated location in the middle of a desert. He sold them on the urgency and the scientific challenge of the mission. It was a testament to his charisma and his reputation. He created a community of scientists at Los Alamos. It was a place unlike any other. Here the greatest physicists, chemists, and engineers of the generation lived and worked together. Oppenheimer fostered an atmosphere of intense collaboration. He encouraged open debate and the free exchange of ideas. He knew that secrecy was necessary for the project, but he fought to keep the science as open as possible within the lab's fences. This allowed the team to solve problems faster. An idea from a physicist might help a chemist whose discovery could then solve a problem for an engineer. This collaborative spirit was Oppenheimer's creation. The group he assembled was legendary. It included future Nobel Prize winners and giants of 20th century science. There was Richard Feynman, a young and brilliant physicist with a playful mind. There was Edward Teller, whose focus would later turn to the hydrogen bomb. There was Niels Bohr, a mentor to a generation of physicists who visited and offered his wisdom. Oppenheimer managed all these powerful intellects and their often clashing egos. He acted as a scientific mediator and a source of inspiration. He brought them all together, focused on a singular purpose, turning a remote mesa into a powerhouse of scientific discovery. The challenge at Los Alamos was immense. It was not enough to know that a bomb was possible in theory. The team had to figure out how to actually build one. There were two main paths being explored, and Oppenheimer oversaw both. One path used a rare isotope of uranium called uranium-235. The other used a new man-made element called plutonium. Each material presented its own unique set of technical difficulties. The scientists had to invent entirely new fields of science and engineering on the fly. Oppenheimer's broad understanding of the physics allowed him to guide the research teams working on these parallel and often competing designs. The design for the uranium bomb was simpler, at least in concept. It was called a gun-type device. The idea was to fire one piece of uranium-235 into another, like a bullet into a target. When they combined, they would reach critical mass and explode. While the concept was straightforward, the engineering was not. The team had to be absolutely sure it would work the first time, since there was not enough uranium-235 to test it. Oppenheimer's role was to ensure that every calculation was checked and every theory was sound. He pushed his teams to be certain, to remove all doubt through pure intellectual rigor and careful experimentation. The plutonium bomb was a much greater puzzle. Early tests showed that a gun-type design would not work for plutonium. It would fizzle out before a full explosion could occur. This was a major crisis for the project. The solution was a radical new idea called implosion. This design involved surrounding a sphere of plutonium with powerful explosives. These explosives had to detonate perfectly at the same time. The blast wave would crush the plutonium sphere inward, compressing it to critical mass. It was an incredibly complex engineering problem. The timing had to be perfect, down to a millionth of a second. Oppenheimer's leadership was critical in solving the implosion problem. He reorganized the laboratory to focus on this challenge. He brought together theorists, explosives experts, and engineers. He encouraged them to try bold new ideas. He managed the intense pressure and the frequent setbacks. He would walk through the laboratories, asking probing questions and offering insightful suggestions. He did not solve every problem himself, but he created the environment where the problems could be solved. He guided his team through the maze of physics and engineering, keeping them focused and motivated, even when a solution seemed impossible. After years of relentless work, the moment of truth arrived. The team had built a plutonium bomb, a device nicknamed the Gadget. They needed to test it. On July 16, 1945, in a remote part of the New Mexico desert called Jornada del Muerto, the Trinity test took place. In the pre-dawn darkness, the world's first atomic bomb was detonated. The result was staggering. A flash of light, brighter than the sun, lit up the mountains. A mushroom cloud of fire and dust rose miles into the sky. The power of the atom had been unleashed. For Oppenheimer and the scientists watching, it was a moment of terrifying success. The success of the Trinity test was the culmination of the Manhattan Project. It proved that the team's theories and their complex implosion design worked. It was a victory for the hundreds of scientists at Los Alamos. But it's important to remember that the project was much bigger than just one laboratory. Across America, more than 100,000 people had worked on it. There were factory workers producing uranium in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. There were engineers building plutonium reactors in Hanford, Washington. All of these people contributed to the final result. The bomb was a product of American industry and science on a massive scale. Even so, Oppenheimer's role cannot be overstated. He was the visionary at the center of it all. Without his leadership, the project might have failed. He brought together a team of geniuses and got them to work as one. He guided them through scientific and technical challenges that had never been faced before. He managed the immense pressure from the government and the military. He understood both the vastness of the theoretical physics and the intricate details of the engineering. He was the essential link connecting the world of ideas to the world of physical reality. In the end, J. Robert Oppenheimer is remembered as the father of the atomic bomb. This title doesn't mean he built it with his own hands. It means he was its intellectual and spiritual guide. He was the man whose mind encompassed the entire project. He saw the path from a theoretical equation to a weapon that would change the course of human history. His leadership was the catalyst that transformed a bold idea into a terrifying reality. He successfully conducted the most complex scientific orchestra ever assembled, and they played a song that the world would never forget.
So hit that subscribe and ring that bell too, for history's wonders waiting for you. Billy at Works, let the knowledge ignite, exploring the past with all of our might.